This is Limited Supply, the place for refreshingly real takes on what D2C is really like.
We're your hosts, Nik and Moiz. Let's start talking about money.
All right, Moiz, you know, every time we work out together, I take some pre-workout before sometimes, and I always get it from this brand, Caged. Now, why do I use Caged? Because they are on Tapcart. So I have their app on my phone. Every time it runs out, I just go to the app and reorder it. They do over 21% of their revenue just through their Tapcart app. Their AOV is 19.5% higher than their .com, and their conversion rates for mobile web, like just going on Safari, is 4.5 times higher than the mobile web, and then compared to desktop, it's almost 2.5 times higher. It's 2.4x.
That is absolutely insane. More than a fifth of their revenue is coming from the Tapcart app that they have.
Yeah,
That's
and the craziest
bonkers.
is the difference of the conversion rate within the app and mobile web. Who would have thought?
Now I understand why you have such good workouts. You're on all this pre.
If you want to have a success like Cage with Tapcart, go to tapcart.com/limited.
This is episode 3 of season 4. We are on a roll this season, huh?
We're on a roll. So people don't realize this because it comes out once a week, but we recorded Saturday, episode 1. We recorded Sunday, episode 2. Today's Tuesday. We're recording episode 3. And I don't know, we might get 2 more episodes in this week.
I feel like I think we took like a week off or something, or 10 days off, and I feel so much either more energized as a result of those 10 days off, or I feel like the entire world has changed, and so I'm like, there's so much to talk about.
So much.
But okay, there's a bunch of stuff that we want to chat about today. A couple things that I just added to the agenda that I'm not sure we had mentioned before. One was this company called Sunday Naturals, just because I saw a news article about it. I know we want to talk about some Attentive stuff, offshoring employees, possibly ways your 3PL is fucking you, Klaviyo stuff, and we've got a lightning round. I think maybe we should start with offshoring employees, because awesome. I think that's really like every e-commerce business, or a lot of e-commerce businesses have done that in the past. I think the questions are, what roles can you offshore? Who should you offshore to? When should you offshore? How much should you pay? What country should you use? And so there's a bunch of questions around this. So maybe we can start with you. What's your experience doing this? You do it for Charmer Brands. You did it at Hint. Tell me a little bit about this.
Yeah, so I'll tell you a bit about how this came up to be a segment that I wanted to add. I've always, like, especially in the last probably year, I've been really focused on trying to figure out ways to get, basically streamline our cash flow, which, I should have started doing this a longer time ago, but I think being on with you so much, everything I look at now, I'm like, okay, do we need this? Can this be cheaper? And so I started thinking, right? Like, we have so many things that we do routinely, and we've started building out these SOPs, or basically documenting the process of how we do things. And a lot of the things, not all of them require somebody with like a high brain power to execute. For example, today we had a client who needed to swap out the image that shows up when you share a link in iMessage or on social, or, taking best performing ad copy, or taking all of the performance over the last week and turning it into a deck that's presentable internally about what's going on, what's working, what's not working. And it's nothing crazy. It's like grabbing numbers, it's taking screenshots, screen recordings, putting it in an iPhone thing. So immediately I start thinking, okay, well, that's part one. That's me thinking, why are we paying employees high salaries, and they're spending their time on this instead of focusing on solving other problems? Part 2 to this is I had breakfast with Alejandro, who started Mott and Bow, which is like a denim brand.
Yeah,
like
I know.
I said Alejandro. And so we're getting breakfast, and he's telling me he's the only employee in the US. I'm like, so are you running this whole thing yourself? He's like, no. We've got everybody outside of the US, Brazil, South America, Argentina, Philippines, and he's the only employee here, and he pays a fraction of what everybody else is paying here for the same roles: head of media buying, head of growth, CFO, head of supply chain, VP of marketing, all these roles that we normally hire for here, mainly in like New York and California. He has all these roles in Argentina and Brazil and all these other places. So I started thinking, okay, I've tried to do the offshore employee thing before. And I generally run into a couple issues. The first issue is I hire somebody, and in my head, the task is so simple. This one person I hired, her name, actually, I won't say her name just in case she's listening, but two people I hired, they were both developers. Now, I'm not a developer. I'm like maybe outside of the two of us, we're like the two Indians who probably don't know how to code. And I don't know how to judge a good developer other than taking somebody else's word for the fact that she's a good developer. So I used one of these offshoring recruiting agencies, and I said, I need a Shopify developer. Nothing like building crazy sites, but hey, editing some fonts or editing this, adding this module, taking this pixel perfect Figma design, implementing it in Shopify responsively. And, it turns out they were so good at everything except Shopify. And so we worked with them to build like probably one or two things, but it was $1,000 a month, which is like nothing for a really good developer. And I think we got probably around $1,000 worth of value out of it. I wish we had gotten $10,000 worth of value because that was the promise I was sold. So that was my experience firsthand, was like hiring two developers and then feeling like, damn, I think I just got ripped off. The second one was hiring a VA whose main job was actually to like basically join some calls and like take notes. I was just like, I am not really good at taking notes when I'm on the phone because I try to be super engaged in the conversation. Your job is to basically take notes, transcribe them into, some sort of every meeting should have a document, and it should have what was discussed, who was on the call, what are the outcomes. That was also impossible. So then I'm like, okay, offshoring is a scam. Basically, like somebody's making money in the short run when I'm paying 30% recruiting fee. So this $1,000 developer, I paid $3,000 to the recruiting agency. I used this person for 6 months and then I was done. So I was like, okay, I got scammed here. Then I tried this other service and it wasn't really what I was promised when this happened. Like I was promised, oh, this person's going to do graphic design or video editing. Dude, the graphic design looks like dog shit. And so I was just like, I'm not doing this. Then I start talking to a couple more people. And first of all, the rise of offshoring talent has been astronomical. And what has happened as a result is, when more people come into a space, the people who win provide a better service. And so what do these people do? They're like, Growth Assistant, Jesse's company. He will basically train these people to understand Facebook Ads Manager, Google Analytics, how to go through Ads Manager and pull numbers or pull reports, how to add UTMs to campaigns, how to set up, a bulk sheet of an Excel file or a CSV to upload into Ads Manager, anything from like SEO metadata, figuring out titles and H1, H2, all this shit that like, it's just like things that need to get done, and they're kind of boring and routine, but it's nearly, you'll never find time on your calendar to do. It's like a firm like this, you're definitely paying a premium. You're paying $3,000 instead of $1,000, but you're getting somebody who has these learnings basically built in. It's like they have this farm of Filipinos. They water the plants, they grow them, they educate them, and then they come to you.
Well, let me interrupt you for 1 second and ask you right now, do you have any VAs at Sharma Brands? And if so, what are they doing?
Right now we have one VA and she does three main things. One is managing my calendar.
Okay.
One is basically anytime in Slack we need to schedule something across clients or internal,
she does it.
Ping her and she figures out all the calendars. The third one is customer service management and basically overseeing tickets. Most of the tickets are routine. She responds to them, and anything that's higher than that, she just drops it in Slack and somebody figures it out.
Okay. And how many hours a week does she work, and what do you pay her?
She is 8 to 6 every day, my hours, US EST. And I pay approximately $1,600 a month.
Okay.
And
so 8 to 6 is 10 hours a day, 5 days a week. So 50 hours. Let's say that's 200 hours a month. So you're paying $8 an hour. Is that right?
That is right. And let me tell you the fucked up part. I'm paying 1,600, and I know for a fact she's making 500.
Oh, because you went through an agency to
I
get
went
her.
through an agency, yeah.
Got it.
Now I've tried to get this agency to let me buy my contract out,
Yeah.
or just be like, yo, I've been here for like 3 years, just like let me take her away. And they're like, no, we're gonna keep arbitraging her, and you're stuck here.
Well, that's going to be a great segue to Attentive when we get to it.
Okay, so there's one other thing I want to mention, because this I think is actually really interesting. There's this company I found yesterday called Activate Talent, which is basically a international recruiting firm. So they're not like this virtual assistant farm. They don't they don't do what a lot of these other companies do. What they do is they say, okay, give us a job description. We're going to go find you the best candidates outside of the US. It might be in India, it might be Japan, it might be the Philippines, it might be Brazil, Argentina. They use some sort of AI to like find and like find the talent. Like
I'm pretty sure that
qualify the
AI
talent.
is other offshore
another
people.
Indian.
Yeah, like
It's another
messaging.
Indian.
Yeah, that's right.
But what is cool is like they also do the PEO side, which means like you don't have to deal with the labor law, issues or potential issues. And so I asked him, yesterday I was thinking, I don't know if you've met Scott, my business partner in 1180, but I was talking to Scott, and I was like, what would it cost here if we were in the office to just build out a high caliber dev shop, like just build random ideas that we have that we think would make our jobs more efficient within what we're doing at 1180 or Sharma Brands or whatever. Or if we decided we just want to like have a team that we can go to and say, here's an app I want to build, give me the app in a month. And basically it costs like, call it 2 to 250 in salaries per engineer. That same engineer externally would cost us about 50. And then a CTO would normally cost us probably, let's say 300, like a really good CTO.
And you're saying 300,000
$80.
US dollars if they were based in the United States. If they were based abroad, they would cost 80,000.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so, anyways, I found this thing fascinating because I'm currently in this spot where I actually want to go find support for some of our team members at Sharma Brands, or even hooks to like help with, it could be something as simple as, wireframing a page, and as complex as like build me a financial model, where I don't want to pay the US rates for these people, which probably sounds fucked up, but I don't. And then you have, all the taxes and whatnot on top. I would rather pay somebody in an international country who can do the same caliber of work, probably will work harder, and will deliver just as good of a result.
Okay, so Nik, a lot of thoughts about this. One is you said that, based on our conversations, you're constantly looking at costs, and that makes me so happy that we're doing
I could see that big smile.
Yeah, that is the most amazing thing anyone's ever told me.
The Costco hot dog is now 3 times a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, that's right. Ironically enough, Ezra Firestone, who I'm not sure if you've ever met him, he lives in New York, but like upstate New York. He posted a tweet yesterday, and he's like, 1 year, he and I chatted a bunch. We used to chat a lot more, and now we chat, maybe once a quarter or once every 6 months. And he's like, I started looking at all my costs because Moiz was telling me the same thing. And he's like, I dropped my expenses by $500,000 a year without switching any service providers. Like I called up Stripe, I called up Shopify, I called up Klaviyo, I called up everybody I could. And I was like, hey, I need a service. I need a discount to these for this SaaS software. And he's like, that saved me $500,000 a year. I genuinely think there are meaningful savings to be had just by trying to knock down costs. Specifically with offshore employees, I think generally they fall into 2 buckets. I think it's really hard to do what you're talking about, which is you want someone to come. When I say hard, I mean that's maybe not the right word to use. Yeah, you want someone to update the image when you share a website on social media. You want that. It's like the Facebook OG IMG or whatever it is. Yeah, that makes sense, but it's almost hard to teach. It's not worth my time to go teach somebody offshore how to do this. Like it doesn't happen frequently enough where I can be like, let me go to, hey, Philippine person, let me teach you how to do this, because you're going to have to do this even 10 times a week. I'd say this is enough. You're going to have to do this once every quarter. And by the time I teach you to do it, you do it this quarter, and next quarter you have to do it again. You're going to have forgotten, and I'm going to have to show you again. And
Do you
so
ever use
generally,
like looms to record your processes?
yeah, I do use looms. I generally think that they fall into two buckets. One is like customer service, and two is developer work. I think there is another bucket of like virtual assistant or assistant, which I really haven't gotten into, but I think you it sounds like you've gotten into and had a
Yeah,
good
I've been using
experience
it for
with.
like 4 or 5 years.
I think the harder thing is like, oh, I need operational stuff done. When should I order more inventory? Oh, there's a problem with this container. You need to call a bunch of people to figure that stuff out. Then I'm like, I need somebody that's on my timetable, that's in my time zone, that speaks English fluently, that like understands my dilemmas. So I'll tell you, at Native, what happened is we hired the first 4 or 5 customer service. Let me talk about customer service first. The first 4 or 5 customer service people we hired were in-house. That because like for a few reasons. One is we didn't have any statements of procedure and any SOPs. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing, and we needed the people right away. And I didn't know that offshore people, like, you could get away with it, or they would speak English well enough that like it was a good outcome. So we hired 4 or 5 people here. Then we started working with another company that helped us, just like you're talking about, an agency that helps you find people abroad. We did what you are trying to do, which is we got those people. We went around the agency. We're like, okay, this agency sucks. First, the agency would give us like 2 good employees and like 4 bad employees. And so we're like, okay, the 2 good employees, we want to hire them. The 4 bad employees, we don't want. And so like ultimately they quit the agency, and then we reached out to them and just hired them directly. And so that happened. And what happened is we ended up having a team of like 10 or 12 people that all worked from home rather than come into an office. Like before, when we had this agency do it, all of them would come into an office, work from there. 2 or 3 of them would be good, 5 or 6 of them would be bad. We got the 2 or 3 of them, and then we had them work from home. And then if we wanted more people, we would ask them, we're like, hey, who are your friends that can do customer service as well? Like, good customer service people. You speak English really well. You're just more talented than other people, and more talented people are going to hang out with more talented people. So who else is going to be really good that we can add to our team in order to grow our staff of customer service employees? And that's really how we started growing. After we got 2 or 3 good people, we would just ask them, hey, who else is good? Once in a while, they'd be like, here's this bumpkin. And you're like, this person's a bumpkin. I don't want to hire this person. And it turns out that it's your sister or your grandmother, or like, like that's not a good person to hire. But usually when they referred their friends, it worked out really well. We paid really well. And even the e-commerce businesses I have today, we pay our customer service team really well. We will never pay, $8 an hour. We'll be way more than $10 an hour. And if they're fantastic, I would pay $25 an hour, which is, US rates. But these people show up on time, speak English as well as you and I do. They never, July 4th, they don't celebrate July 4th. Thanksgiving, they don't celebrate Thanksgiving. That's an American holiday. They're in the Philippines. They're like, no problem. We're not going to work this day. We're going to work that day, even if you guys have off. And so we pay really well and retain them for years. In fact, there are 2 women that I still remember at Native that still work there. They've been working there for longer than I was at Native. Like they've probably been there for 6 or 7 years at this point.
Yeah.
And so I think that from a customer service perspective, they're fantastic. And I would encourage people to definitely hire customer service people in the Philippines. It's weird. I feel like Indian people tend to be doctors or taxi cab drivers or own convenience stores. Customer service people tend to be in the Philippines. Developers tend to be in Eastern Europe. Yeah. Romania, Poland, Ukraine, all Serbia. Like that area. Yeah, Serbia. And so I also have a developer that's been working with me for a decade, more than a decade, actually. He started with me at Caskers and is still working with me 11 years later. I talk to him on a daily basis. We have never met face to face. We've never even had a phone call, actually. And so he is I think you're right. Like I think we pay him. He doesn't work only for us. He works for several brands that I work for, and together he makes, I don't know, $4 or $5 grand a month or something to that across all the brands that he works with me for. And he's great, has been working with me for a decade. And the first time I did a loom with him, or the first time I sent him a loom, he's like, "Oh my God, I've never seen what you look like." He's never Googled me. And so I thought that was really funny. I find that there are those 2 groups that I've engaged with. Customer service people, I pay $10 to $20. Look, I don't mind paying an extra $2 an hour, $80 a week, which is literally nothing, to get somebody who speaks English well, is always on top of it, crushes tickets, and like doesn't escalate issues to me.
Right.
And for developers, same thing. I'm ready to pay a little bit more to get really good
Do you
talent.
know what you pay for developer?
I think this guy's like across all of the brands that I work with him on, it's probably around $5,000, give or take a little bit per month, maybe
Yeah.
like somewhere around that area. I'm not exactly sure.
Got it. Yeah, I think our so we work with a pretty decent sized team in Ukraine called, and I think they charge just over $100 an hour, but their quality of work is what you would find here for $250 to $300 an hour. Phenomenal quality. And then there's a developer that I work with in India, who is just like this one sole guy, and he's built his own army of people, and that costs about probably around $65 an hour.
Okay, wow, yeah, that's
And his
healthy
his
rates.
yeah, his development quality too is like $300 an hour in the US.
That's amazing. Yeah, I feel like like what the hard part about offshore talent, and I'm really like I'm glad you gave that story about how you hired developers, the two developers that didn't work out, you hired a VA and maybe it didn't work out. It is a process of trial and error, and you will always err the first few times because you will get fucked. And then once you find people that you like working with, they will stick with you because you don't really mind the excess pay that you have to give them because it's not that much when your business is working. So you will the developer I've been working with a decade. There have been customer service people that I work with that I've been working with for probably close to 10 years as well. And you can once you find people that you like, they will follow you to different brands, to different companies. They'll do what you want. They understand what you want. You don't have to train them over and over again. When you want to grow your team, you just ask them, who else should I get? And they'll help you grow your team. And so I think it is a process of trial and error. I'm glad you talked about the error that you had. I had plenty of error on my end as well. We had a bunch of people that were crazy. But ultimately, I think it's a fantastic thing to outsource or to work with people over a long period of time. You can outsource it. You can get cheaper rates, and they understand what you want. You don't have to train them, and they know when to escalate issues to you. Yeah, it's relationships.
Yeah, exactly. I think the three key takeaways here. One is finding employees through people's friends who are talented is a huge one.
Yes.
If I even just think about our New York office for Sharma Brands, almost like most of the office came from people's friends and then their friends and expanding through that. Second one is developers and customer service are probably two great places to start with international talent. And then the third one is don't give up on the first 5 bad hires that you make, but try to build a proper qualifying process or test when you hire them.
Yeah. And I think that one more takeaway there is don't try and get away with paying these people $4 an hour. Like you will get, you'll get shitty talent if you're like, I'm going to be so cheap that I'll only pay $4 an hour. Pay $7, pay $8, pay $12, and get good talent. Don't be a bottom of the barrel, fisher.
Yeah, that's all you're going to get then.
Yeah. One of my friends, actually, I've got 2 side stories. I think those takeaways were great. One of them is this guy who started a business. He basically has a business where fast food restaurants. Tyler, can we bleep out this name? Hired him, and he has a camera outside restaurants, and they're like, look, we've hired him. They've hired him to figure out how many cars are in line at lunchtime and at dinner time because there's a traffic issue, and all these states are yelling at them, being like, or these cities are like, we're going to shut down this because there's too many cars on the road. And so this guy has cameras outside of. And then he was like, I use automation to figure out how many cars there are. I think he sold that idea. And
does the automation sound like this?
Yeah, that's right. The automation is based in Bombay. It's AI. Their AI is a bunch of Indian guys with 2 eyeglasses, with 2 eyes and a pair of eyeglasses, looking at a computer screen, counting cars at any given time. Dude, which I think is hilarious. One of my other friends has outsourced trying to verify medical records to verify medical insurance. She's outsourced it to Pakistan, and she's like, I love this Pakistani guy that I work with. She's like, I tried to bond with him. I tried to create this office environment where I'm like, oh, what do you like to do for fun? And he's like, I like to work. That's what's my fun. He's like, don't talk to me about anything other than work. Give me more work. Don't talk to me about no collegiality. This is a work environment. Yeah. We're only business here.
That is so funny. Yeah, there's no office cooler talk in
India
and Pakistan.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, great takeaways. I love that you wrapped that up so well.
All right, Moiz. You know Kevin, who started Glamnetic? So I texted him today because I'm like, we talk about Tapcart all the time. So I texted him. I was like, yo, do you guys use Tapcart for Glamnetic? Does it work well? And he said they've had Tapcart for the last few years. It works great for the most loyal customer base. It helps with a ton of product drops, and they leverage the push notifications a bunch. Overall, the LTV from someone who downloaded Tapcart is much higher than non-app customers. So then I said, what is it like for app setup, upkeep, maintenance? Is it easy to do? And he said, overall, super easy. Didn't take long to set up. For strategy, we layer it into our overall marketing strategy to make sure we're maximizing value. And the upkeep maintenance doesn't really take much time either.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think everyone who's thinking about Tapcart is always like, what do I have to do to get my own mobile app? Like, do I need to design it? Do I need to get some guy to wireframe this app and then pass it along to Tapcart along with colors and fonts and all that kind of stuff? And it's way easier than that. You pass, Tapcart is able to lock into your Shopify store and download most of the design that they need. So the lift is way lighter than you think.
Totally. And right now, if you go to tapcart.com/limited, you can sign up and they will model out your incremental revenue lift you will get from the app. So go visit tapcart.com/limited.
Let's move on to, let me just talk about Sunday Naturals and then we'll move on to Attentive.
Perfect.
I want to talk about Sunday Naturals just because I read this thing on the internet earlier this week, and I thought it was helpful in case other people are in this industry. Sunday Naturals is an online retailer of vitamins and supplements. I've never heard of it until yesterday. I'm certainly not an investor. I've never bought anything from there. I have no affiliation with them. They're based in Germany, and they're trying to sell the business. And this report got leaked, and it got it was publicized somewhere. They are trying to get $655 million to $900 million for the business. It was in euros, so I had to roughly translate into dollars. It was founded in 2013. I couldn't find their revenue, but their EBITDA is $50 million this year. Last year, it was $30 million. So they're looking at a 12 to 16x EBITDA. That's what they want to trade for. It might be high, might be low. I don't know where they're sold. I know they're not on Shopify. I don't know enough about the business to be like, yeah, they're sold in brick and mortar retailers or they're only sold online. I don't know anything about it. I just like bringing up comps because a lot of people are constantly fundraising or trying to sell their businesses. And they're like, what is the valuation of this business? People
What would you pay for this? The $50 million in EBITDA?
It was $30 million in EBITDA last year and $50 million in EBITDA this year. First, that's a great question. I'm really glad you asked that question. That's a lot of EBITDA growth. That's a 20 million. Is this all based in, we just got into one retailer, we're in Walmart now, or the Walmart equivalent?
Cut insane amounts of costs.
Yeah, exactly.
To sell the business.
Yeah, exactly. Or is this direct to consumer growth? And there's plenty more where this came from because we just unlocked a new product. Like this business, I went to their website and they've got 40 million SKUs. They've made every vitamin ever you've ever seen, and plenty that you've never heard of. And so I would, certainly more than 10x EBITDA. It's a VMS supplement. It's been around for a decade. EBITDA is growing. I would imagine they have at least 10%, 20% margins. So you're looking at a, $500 million top line business or something to that effect. So that $650 to $900 million doesn't sound unreasonable, but the market is also we don't love e-commerce right now. We don't love health and beauty. We don't love
It's also
CPG.
kind of a tough price. There's not that many people that can pay that.
Great point. Yeah. Great point. Harry's is one of the, one of the reasons we sold Native the time we did was because I was like, I want anyone to be able to buy this business at $100 million. A lot of people can write that check. Right. Harry's tried to sell to Edgewell. They cannot sell to Edgewell for more than $1 billion. Else. They can't sell to P&G and nobody else can afford them, or very few brands can afford them. And so their only path to exit is IPO. This business is not that size. This business is more reasonable than that, but there are $1 billion is still a lot of money.
Interesting.
One other thing, actually, if I can mention, Casper, I'm not sure if you saw this. They sold their Canada business. Did you see this?
I saw the link that you sent in our limited supply Slack group, which everybody should sign up for at limitedsupplypod.com.
Yeah, I love that Slack group. I'm always on it. I'm always on it. Anyway, it was a really weird transaction. I don't know any of the numbers because Casper is now privately traded business, so I couldn't tell you any of the numbers of Casper's Canada revenue. But this is what happened. So the buyer gave Casper $21 million, let's say, okay? It was 20.6. I'm going to say 20. Let's say $20 million. Casper gave the buyer back $5 million in a marketing transition fee. Why that happened, I've never heard of a marketing transition fee before in my career, but they gave him back $5 million. Then the buyer gave another $20 million for a 5% stake or up to 5% stake in Casper. So
in the whole Casper, not just Canada Casper.
Correct. Yeah, they own the buyer is a Canadian mattress company already. They now own Casper Canada. They pay.
So that values the Casper. I mean, that means that Casper's business as of yesterday is worth $400 million.
Yeah, and there's no chance that's the case. So I'm not really sure what's going on here. It could be that they were like, here's $20 million for 5% for warrants worth up to 5% of Casper's. And this is like part of the Casper Canada price. Like, it was a complicated transaction. So I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if those values can be easily interchanged like that. But ultimately, they gave him $40 million. They got back $5 million. So net, they gave him $35 million for Canada, for Casper in Canada, and 5% of Casper everywhere else.
That is fascinating. Another one that just happened yesterday. Authentic Brands Group. They own like Forever 21 and all these other companies. They bought Quicksilver, or the parent company of basically Quicksilver, Billabong. Roxy, I think, is in there, and it looks like they paid about 1.25 billion, which to me was interesting, not because of the transaction. I think the reason it's interesting is because, kind of like how we were talking about in episode 1, of these brands that will continue to be traded and traded because their brand equity is so good. Like Quicksilver is a brand I grew up on, wearing their clothes, and that was like the cool brand that everybody wore when I was a kid. I think that brand, like ABG, is going to do something with it now, and in 10 years, 8 years, they're going to flip it again for 10 times what they just bought it for.
It's so fun to see those things happen. Like remember starter jackets? You're too young for starter jackets, I think. Yeah. But when I was a kid, starter jackets were like a huge thing. Everyone wanted one. My parents were like, this is too expensive. We're not buying this. Then it was like, Champion clothing. Like Champion clothing now is like super hot.
Now it's
when
everywhere.
I was a kid, Champion was sold at Kmart for $3 because nobody in their right mind would be caught wearing it.
Yeah.
It's such different dynamics. It's so funny to see.
All right. What are we getting into next?
Attentive? Let's talk about Attentive.
Okay. I mean, first of all, let's somehow say what's the legal statement to say to recluse ourselves from any potential lawsuit? We need to put that up front here.
Yeah.
Because they throw lawsuits.
Two things. One is I'm an investor in Postscript and have been for a really long time. I think you're affiliated or also an investor. An advisor to Postscript. Okay. Two is, hey baby, First Amendment. We are covered by that First Amendment shield. Okay. So
there's also whatever you want. Did you see we went to go see the Hassan Minhaj's show together, and what was that act at the very end where it's like there's a law that because this is for it's assumed this is for comedy, it invalidates any potential legal claim.
That's right. Yeah, actually, it was Fox News. I think someone had sued Tucker Carlson, and Fox News had said this isn't news, this is comedy.
Yeah, so this is a comedy podcast today.
What I'm saying is not comedy. That's the word in me. But we've said that we're investors in Postscript. The reason I want to bring it up is because Attentive has been holding a bunch of people's SMS lists hostage. Basically, if you're working with Attentive and you want to download your SMS list, they will. They've put up a lot of barriers for you to be able to download that list, even though it's your own data. Like if you go to Klaviyo today and you want to download your email list, it'll take about 10 seconds if you've got a really small business, and about 10 minutes if you've got a really big business, because Klaviyo's got to process that. That's not what we're talking about here. In this instance, Attentive has gotten legal teams involved to try and prevent you from downloading your list, even if you've fulfilled the terms of your contract and paid them all the money that they're owed.
Yeah, it's even that's the crazy part, right? It's even if you've paid them the money for the service up until that point. Generally, like I know that there's some companies that exist. Heap Analytics is one. They're one that'll also fuck you if you try to get out of a contract early. They will say, well, if you want to get out of the contract early, we're just going to go after you. That's one. The thing with Attentive that's interesting is like generally in this ecosystem, I'd like to think that a lot of the players are quite like nice and friendly. If you're like, hey, Klaviyo, I signed a year contract, but you know what? I'm out. They will probably just say, oh, fuck, bummer. Okay, well, hope you come back and here's your stuff. Attentive will say, no, you have to stay till the end. And also, there was a contract that I was just reading recently, a couple weeks ago. You have a window to opt out, and it's like a 30-day window to opt out of your contract renewal. Somebody missed it by one day, and they were forced to stay the next year, and you have to pay all the fees. Even if you paid all the fees, you don't get your list until the day after the contract expires, which to me, this makes no sense. There also, yesterday I saw, I just Googled like Attentive lawsuit. They're suing Postscript. I don't even know if you know this, but they're suing Postscript for the two-tap opt-in because it's patented, which I don't know how that got patented. That's like saying Shopify cart permalinks should be patented. But it's basically when you see the pop-up, you click the button takes you to iMessage, which is a permalink. That is a permalink. That's a definition of it. You send a message. It sends some sort of a reference code, which tells the software, this is where this came from, and this is who this customer is and what they're trying to do. And then it sends you a text reply back. That apparently is patented, and Attentive is currently suing Postscript and I believe Emotive as well for the same thing. I just thought it was almost like
that is interesting
and sort of scary to do business with somebody who will basically hold you hostage or they're very litigious. That's the right word.
Yeah. I hate doing business with people that are this litigious. I don't know enough about the patent, although like, patents become really valuable when they've been held up in court because they often fail when like, someone starts examining them. I don't know anything about this patent, so I can't speak to it. It is fucked up that they will hold your list hostage. Like this guy, the guys at sent me the emails that they had with Attentive. And, the emails are really clear where they're like, look, our contract says that we can get our personal information, our customer data in accordance with our express instructions. This is our express instructions. Give me our personal data, give me our customer data. And they refused to do it. And it took them months to get it done. When I was at Shop Talk, the Attentive booth and the Klaviyo booth were right next to each other. And I went up to the Attentive booth and I saw someone with a badge that said, I forgot what their name was, and it said CEO Attentive. And so I was like, hey, how come you guys are holding lists hostage? And she was like, we're not doing that. And I was like, well, I know for a fact that you are. I've literally seen the emails. I've seen the emails where people say, I've paid everything that you could get from this contract, and I want my list now. Give it to me. And you've said no, and you've brought attorneys in. And so she's like, oh, well, maybe it's people who haven't paid their bills. And I was like, no, maybe that's happened. Maybe I don't know everyone who's requested their list from you. Although I think that if I didn't pay my Klaviyo bill, I could probably still download my list. I just couldn't send an email. But okay, fine. I'm sure that's happened, but that's not the only reason. Sometimes you just hold lists hostage. And I was like, so she started looking around. I was like, you don't need to look around. It says you're this. I was like, I'm talking to you. It says CEO on your badge. And she's like, I'm not the CEO of the business. I just have a CEO badge. And I was like, okay, so the lies start with the badge. And I don't know what her name was, but I'm positive it said, and if she listens to this podcast, I guarantee you if the Attentive asks, did anyone talk to Moiz at Shop Talk, she will not have forgotten this. Because I was like, she's like, I'm not the CEO. I was like, why don't you go get somebody who can answer this question? And she's like, oh, that person's out at lunch. Why don't you come back? And I was like, okay, I understand where I'm giving the boot.
Right.
I asked them. It was so fun. I felt like I was, I felt like I was Diane Sawyer. I was like, I caught you guys. But I had no idea I was going to do it. I was just like, okay, your badge says CEO. I know you're a bad actor in this space. You seem to be getting away with it and have been for some time. Multiple people have told me about this. There's no good answer to this. It's just an actor that you don't want to deal with. Don't use Postscript. I don't care. I'm an investor, but it doesn't matter to me. But like Attentive is, somebody that I would not do business with.
The biggest takeaway that I've learned from situations like this, just watching other people go through this, or I remember working at a company and there was somebody who basically worked there for 3 months and then tried to sue the company for like discrimination. And it turns out she was just a career like
Sewer.
suer. And a lot of these documents are actually public, and it's like one piece of a check that a lot of people don't do. But going to Pacer or Justia and being able to look up court files and just read, like I think it costs 10 cents a page on Pacer and it maxes out at $3. So like yesterday I downloaded the Attentive and Postscript suit. It cost me $3 and it was 200 something pages. But just being able to go and see what you're getting into bed with is such a good idea before you sign any contract, let alone a contract which has no out clause. And it's something that's like a multi-term or multi-month contract.
Yeah, that is so true. Like, just look for litigation.
All right, segue from Attentive. Should we go into Klaviyo, some of the IPO stuff? I think this is pretty interesting. All right, so basically, Klaviyo hired Goldman Sachs, your favorite financial advisor, as the lead underwriter for this IPO. Now, I started digging into the valuation. So they're valued at $9.5 billion. They last raised $320 million just about 2 years ago when this podcast episode is out in May 2021. Currently, 16% of Shopify's entire value is in Klaviyo in terms of market cap. They did $140 million in revenue with a $9.5 billion valuation, which is about a 68x markup. Now, if we compare that to three companies that I think I would put in a similar category, Braze, which is also email and like retention software, they did 100 million with a 3 billion valuation, which is a 30x. HubSpot did 1.7 billion at a 20 billion valuation, which is a 12x. And then MailChimp did $1 billion in revenue. I think this is back from 2021 numbers though, but MailChimp did $1 billion in revenue with a 12 billion valuation, which is also a 12x. Now, these last three companies I mentioned, Braze was 30x, HubSpot was 12x, and MailChimp was 12x. Klaviyo is currently at 68x their revenue. How do you think this plays out when they IPO?
Same way you do, which I can get from the tone of your question, which is, I mean, look, the numbers that they raised at were 2 years ago. Okay. I think that you said that's when they raised money at the $9.5 billion valuation.
Exactly.
Stripe raised money in 2021 at $100 billion valuation at the beginning of 2021. By the end of 2021, it was trading at $200 billion. They raised money at $50 billion, a month ago. Like their price came down by $150 billion or by 75%. Klaviyo's is may not come down by 75%. How much revenue did you say they were doing again? I'm sorry if you don't mind.
140 million at a $9.5 billion valuation.
Yeah, that is tough. I think their EBITDA break even or profitable at this point as well, or close to it. Like HubSpot, I'm almost certain is profitable. MailChimp was profitable and bootstrapped. I think Klaviyo at this point is profitable. Their number one investor, or their largest investor, is a company called Summit Partners, which is large private equity fund. They're also investors in like Brooklinen, Parachute, Shipmonk, and a few other organizations. Recharge, I think. In any case, valuations have just come down so much from those highs. And so I guess I'm surprised at two things. One is that they're trying to IPO this year because the IPO market has been really quiet. 2 years ago, a lot of businesses were IPOing, right? Like Honest IPO then, Allbirds did, all the guys that I harp on all the time.
Yeah.
Today, no one is IPOing. Like it's very quiet because the markets have been beating up not just e-commerce businesses, but SaaS businesses as well. Like Twilio, like look at Twilio stock. In the past, let me look at the last year. In the past year, it is down 60%.
Yikes.
That is a fortune, it is now an $11 billion market cap company. It's trading $144 a share. Now it's $59 a share.
Yeah, it's pretty much where it was at the IPO.
I think that's right. Yeah. And so I think where does Klaviyo trade at? Not $9 billion under any circumstance. $140 million in revenue. I can understand $2-3 billion. it is not going to trade at $10 billion. Even $5 billion, I could sort of understand, but $9 billion has no chance.
So the other interesting thing was they've raised $775 million in funding so far. Their last investment was from Shopify for $100 million, which I also thought was interesting because they tend to invest right before something goes public. It's a great insider game in the private market for them because just like when there's White Claws around, there ain't no laws about insider, like these sort of like pre-IPO rounds, at least that it seems. And so I started to look at what are some of the other investments Shopify's made. I think this might be one of the biggest investments Shopify's made. They did $100 million into Klaviyo. Triple Whale, it wasn't really disclosed, but it was estimated around 25. Yotpo was also not disclosed, but also reported around 30. And then the others like Loop Returns, Tapcart, Disco, and Pipe were a bit earlier, I believe, than like this late stage of a company. But yeah, I mean, these guys are probably going to turn 100 into like 300.
What valuation? I guess it depends. Usually, I found that Shopify tries to invest at a discount. Not always, but I've heard a rumor, I should say, that Shopify tries to invest at a discount. So, like, if you're trading it at $10 billion, they're like, "Look, we'll give you $100 million, but we want it at $5 billion. Why? Because we're fucking Shopify. We can do whatever your platform exists because we exist.
Right.
And so, I think they've got a lot of shoulder power, push people, they elbow people, and I respect that. It's the Canadian version of like throwing an elbow. And so if they've raised 700, so one of the things that's interesting is they've raised $700 million, but I'm not sure there's any preferred stock, which means like the people who put in money at a $9 billion valuation, if they put in $100 million, generally if they don't get that $100 million out, they get $100 million if they don't make more than $100 million. So like, for instance, if the company went to 20 billion, they'd get $200 million. But if the company went to 1 billion, they would still get their 100 million first because they're they put in the.
That's if it was preferred, right?
That's if there was
versus
preference
common
on the stock. Yeah.
But in this case, you're saying it's most likely common.
I've heard they only have common stock. So I think the people who put in at a $10 billion valuation, which was probably Summit, are about to lose a bunch of money. But it really depends on what the market values Klaviyo at. And 2 years ago, the revenue was $130 million, or it sounds like. I'm not sure if that revenue's gone to $200 million or $300 million. So those numbers could be in flux here. One more. So pretty crazy that Shopify.
Actually, just to clarify too, the 140 was actually last year.
Oh, 140 was last year. Okay. Then they have no chance at being worth 20% of Shopify. Absolutely no chance of being worth 20% of Shopify. If they did that would be silly, but they won't IPO at $10 billion or the market will change. Conditions will change before they can do that.
Right.
One thing I'd love for them to do, look, I'm a huge fan of Klaviyo. Despite whatever their valuation is, I think Klaviyo
love Klaviyo.
One of the best. In fact, in 2015, when I started Native, I met the guy who's the CEO of Klaviyo, and this was before they were as big as they are today. And I said, I want to take all of the money that Native has made and invest in Klaviyo because this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And he said, well, okay, we're going to, when next time we raise money, we're going to try and do it from the businesses that are on Klaviyo. He raised money, did not contact me, and I emailed him, and I was like, hey, you said you were going to let me invest. Never emailed me back after that. Despite all of that, I love Klaviyo.
Same.
And I wish one of the things that they would do is, have you played around with their sign-up forms a lot?
Oh, yeah, love it.
I love their sign-up forms. You can A/B test it, and it's so easy. The problem with the A/B testing is you can only see what has a higher opt-in rate. So if you're like, let's say long weekend, you have a pop-up that says 10% off, and then you test a pop-up that says 20% off. Guess which one performs better? 20% off is going to have a higher opt-in rate. I want to see conversion rate. Is the 20% off going to get me more sales?
Yep.
Tell me that. And so I wish they would do an A/B testing on sign-up forms that let you look at conversion rate and not just opt-in rate.
Yeah, one level deeper to that too would be like if you could imagine if coming up to Black Friday, imagine if you could look at last year's Black Friday and understand the LTV of a customer that came in where the email pop-up was the offer versus just like something more generic. Kind of similar to like checking the conversion rate of the customer, but like
LTV.
Which one drove that, a stickier customer over the year?
For sure. Yeah, I would love either of them. I would love both of those. I think LTV would be great, especially because if you could be like, get a free travel size, does that increase my, LTV? Like, I think that's a genuine LTV play.
Yeah.
But like even 10% off versus 20% off, please tell me what has a better conversion rate and like AOV. And does that make sense? Because if so, I'd love to run 20% off instead of 10% off. I can't believe they haven't done this yet. I've like harped on them. I've emailed a couple of people I know there. I've like tweeted about it and they're like, great idea. And I'm like, roll out with it, please.
Yeah.
We talked to
great
Harley.
idea. Just remember you don't work here.
Yeah, that's right. We talked to Harley and, we were like, hey, do cohort analysis. And like a week later,
3 weeks later, it was live.
Yeah.
One interesting thing on the note of pop-ups, there's this company, Soft Serve Clothing, I think I've told you about. And what they'll do with their promos is, let's say they're running like a buy 3, get 1 free. They will just put that offer in their email pop-up, and their conversion rate goes through the roof. It's like 5x what their evergreen conversion rate is for email capture.
Wait, say that all again. Say it all again. I don't.
Okay, so let's say you're running a sale, right? It's like get 30% off any order, or whatever.
Uh-huh.
Changing the email pop-up to reflect the active promotion versus just the evergreen copy.
Yeah.
Will like 4 to 5x the conversion rate, both of email and SMS. It's like a great time to grab SMS numbers.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. That makes a ton of sense. One of the other ways that's a great way to grab SMS numbers, this is a little shady, is so I think before I said like,
why do I think you're about to say like, drop your number, we'll send you nudes?
Well, if you're Moiz Ali, you're already sending a lot of those. I've already got a Klaviyo list for sending people my nuts stuff. The reality is, I remember a few episodes ago, I was like, okay, for the SMS thing, say we're only going to text you discounts and your opt-in rate will increase. One of the brands that I invest with has recently tested text your number, provide your number, and we will text you tracking information, even though they don't text tracking information, and that has crushed it.
And is that's on post-purchase?
That's post-purchase. Yeah, post-purchase. Please enter your phone number so we can provide you tracking information. You should provide that tracking information. This brand is working on providing that tracking information, but they want to test to see if it's worth it, and it absolutely is.
I wonder too, like just taking that similar approach of, give us your number, we'll send you a joke every day. We'll send you a funny one-liner or, something like that. Just kind of like wacky.
We'll send you a joke once a month. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And if you don't laugh, you get 20% off.
Yeah, that's good, actually. That's probably a very easy flow to build too.
Yeah.
Text 1 if you laughed and you get one thing, and text 2 if you didn't laugh, you get another thing.
Yeah, or here's the 20% off anyway. Just buy
fuck it. Take it.
Yeah, cool. That is great. Okay. A quick lightning round. I think we should try and get through. Mainly 3 things, all fundraising related, that I wanted to talk about. One was this company called Stay Tuned Digital just raised $34 million in a combination of equity and debt to buy Shopify apps. I know WeCommerce does this and was having a little bit of like trouble, or like their stock market valuation wasn't doing too hot. This market still exists. People are still buying Shopify apps. These guys just raised $34 million. Who I really like on Twitter is Dennis, who started, I don't even know what business he started. Yeah.
He started a company called Live Recover, which was basically using people overseas you would put your phone number in at checkout. That phone number field there's a law where if you input your number, there's a 24-hour period where you can be messaged from the brand, from a human. And so he literally had humans, and this thing scaled. He sold it for a good amount of money. But this guy is the Shopify SaaS app king.
I love him. Yeah. He is constantly buying them, and he's like willing to take a lot of risk. He's like, this is risk, I'm going to do it. And he's not.
Yeah, it's all I think it's all his own money too. He doesn't go raise anything.
Yeah, I really like him. Anyway, Stay Tuned Digital just raised $34 million. This company called Kite, this just got announced today on TechCrunch, I think. The guy who started GoFundMe just raised $200 million to go buy Shopify businesses. So this business, I'm not sure exactly what he's starting here. Is he starting another Thrasio, or is he starting another WeCommerce? I'm not entirely sure at the end of this article, but he just raised $200 million to go, try and conquer the land of commerce again.
Dude, these are like the magical words to go raise money. I will buy Shopify businesses.
Yeah.
And investors are like, take my money.
Yeah. I don't feel that way ever.
Me
Usually
neither.
I'm like,
I've never thought that.
yeah. And then this business I saw today, and I wish I had started this business. It's called Dental Bee. They make like cleaning equipment for dental appliances. It started by a dentist based in Dallas, Texas. They just raised $5 million. I just wanted to mention it because I think this is a seed round. This market still exists. This guy is a dentist selling, denture kits, dental appliance kits. Wash your dentures, use here's a little case to put them in while you clean them. Do you ever, like, if you were a retainer, I wear a retainer still often, and like,
put it in a case.
Yeah, you got to put it in a case and you got to clean it because it is the most filthy thing in the entire world. And anyway, so this guy created this business and they raised $5 million. The website looks horrendous, but it's perfect for old people, perfect for old people.
It's on WordPress.
Is it on WordPress?
Yeah.
Holy fuck.
All of a sudden, he's a fan.
Oh my God, I love this business. The only difference I would do is I would put a 1-800 number right at the top. Because
it seems like that type of business.
Yeah, my customers are, people who are going to call in to place orders. If your demo is north of the age of 50, have a 1-800 number at the top, just like Zappos does. I don't think you can use, this is a good way to end this, I don't think you can use your Philippine assistant to do this, but maybe you can.
Actually, you might be able to.
Have you, like, when you talk to your team, when you do customer service, does your customer service person answer the phone or just email?
Yeah, we used to have one that answered the phone, and she would like walk people through. It turns out like after like a month, it took like 7 days to get a ticket response, and I was like, okay, you're fired.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
But yeah, it's very possible to do. Like some of them speak very good English. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
In fact, do you remember the as seen on TV?
Guy.
I think a lot of those people are international, just from what I was hearing in the accent when I talked to them.
Yeah. I wonder if you can hire like basically I want people to call when they're ready to place an order or they're having trouble placing an order. I don't want them to call with an issue. Keep the issues on the side. To yourself. Yeah. Have an issue, go to our FAQ. Ready to place an order. Call the 1-800 number. Yeah. No, like, where's my order? FAQ. What's your return policy? Here's the FAQ. I'm ready to place an order. Give me a call, buddy. Let's get this straightened out.
Have you seen how like Google? So like, I when I was in Austin last, I made an appointment I was trying to find an appointment for a barbershop, and I just, in Google Maps, you like search barbershop, you click like request an appointment. It calls the spot with a human voice and says, "Hi there, do you have appointments available today for a haircut and a beard trim, blah, blah, blah." Have you seen this where it's like, it sounds like a human? So I think that ability combined with what you can do with Chat GPT, or even there's a company called certainly.io, which is like a very advanced AI chatbot for customer service. That combination, I think, will do exactly this for less than $8 an hour.
Yeah. Actually, I ran into the True Classic Teas guys at Shop Talk, and they had said that they have a new chatbot on their website powered by a company called Zowie. I've never heard of it. ZOWIE. It's AI powered customer service. And they say that the AI can respond to 80% of tickets that come in through this chatbot.
Wow.
They never need to get up to a customer service agent.
Yeah. With Feastables, we use Certainly and train that bot, and that eats up about 96% of inbound requests, which is crazy.
Certainly.io. How much do you have to pay for them?
It's not cheap, but depending on how big your company is, it can be very worth it. I don't remember the pricing. I can find out and bring it to the next episode though.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. I think that's a wrap for season 4, or I'm sorry, episode 3, not season 4, episode 3 of season 4. This was fantastic. I'm really glad we talked about this offshoring stuff. Because I think I'm always like, how much should I pay? And I'm always like, am I paying too much?
Right.
And the reality is, I think I'm really comfortable with paying over.
Yeah, I think you're at a good spot.
Yeah.
You're not overpaying. You're not underpaying.
Yeah. Okay. Well, appreciate the time. That's a wrap for episode 3.
Come find us in Slack.
Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next time to cut through the noise in CPG, retail, and e-commerce.
And if you enjoyed this episode, then why not share it with a friend? And be sure to subscribe on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on.